Right now, as we speak, 20 to 30 degrees below average, stretching all the way from the Mississippi Valley to the East Coast. Sub-zero air temps across the upper Midwest. And for some of you, this is the coldest it's been in over a year. But here's what makes this really wild. The jet stream is literally ripping the country in half right now, creating two completely different worlds of weather on the same map. And underneath all of that, something even bigger is brewing miles above the Arctic, a sudden stratospheric warming event that could knock the polar vortex completely off its axis and change the game for the rest of winter. So today, I'm breaking all of this down for you. The Arctic blasts, the snow, the 100-degree temperature spread across the country, because this pattern is moving fast and there's a ton to cover. Let's start with the jet stream, because if you understand what it's doing right now, everything else I'm about to tell you is going to make a whole lot more sense. These upper-level winds basically steer every single weather system that rolls through the country, and right now, they're setting up something we don't see every day. There's a massive dip in the jet stream, parked right over the eastern half of the US, and that dip is acting like a funnel, just channeling wave after wave of Arctic air from the southern plains all the way up into New England. Meanwhile, out on the west coast, a ridge is building, and that ridge is about to crank temperatures way above normal. We're talking heat wave territory for some spots by midweek. So picture this by Tuesday and Wednesday. That ridge keeps growing over California and Nevada, pushing temps into the 70s out there, while another deep trough digs into the plains and the East Coast at the exact same time. That new trough is our next round of snowfall for a lot of you, and right behind it, a strong cold front is going to sweep all the way from New Mexico and Texas back up into Maine. Wednesday in particular is going to be a big day. An extensive cold front slamming the southern plains and the entire East Coast. And that's a massive chunk of the country getting walloped all at once. Now here's where it gets really interesting. By Thursday and Friday, you're going to see a super intense ridge locked in across the Rockies and the West Coast. And folks out there are going to feel like winter just straight up ended. Denver's looking at highs near 65 degrees on Friday. Seattle and San Francisco are going to feel more like April than February. And honestly, it's kind of hard to believe when you see what the other half of the country is dealing with. Because at the exact same time, another brutal shot of Arctic air will be pouring out of Canada into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And that cold is going to reach all the way down to Florida again. New England is staring down extreme cold, plus the threat of heavy snow by Friday and Saturday. So if you're up in that part of the country, this upcoming weekend is shaping up to be no joke. The Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, the entire Northeast, all of you, are in the bullseye for a significant Arctic blast this weekend. And the jet stream is only going to intensify from here. And that ridge along the West Coast, it's not going anywhere. It's going to hold strong. And then by the middle of February, that's when we think the overall pattern kicks into an even higher gear. We're talking large storm systems rolling over the Rockies, the return of severe weather, and potentially some monster winter storms across the Great Plains and the Ohio Valley. So, if you're in the Midwest or the Ohio Valley, let me be straight with you. This is not a one-and-done cold snap. This is a repeating pattern that's going to keep punching week after week. All right, now let's get into the temperatures. Because honestly, this is where you really feel how insane this weather divide is. And some of these numbers are going to blow your mind. Right now today, huge parts of the East Coast and Mississippi Valley are running 20 to 30 degrees below average. That's the kind of cold that makes your bones ache the second you step outside. Florida and New England are seeing some of their coldest weather in over a year. And I know a lot of you down in the Southeast are probably thinking, I did not sign up for this. Now, Tuesday night into early Wednesday, there's a tiny little break for some areas. Temps creep up just a touch, but do not get comfortable, because that relief is extremely short-lived. Another strong cold front is barreling in from Texas all the way to New England, and the heaviest Arctic air is going to park itself right over the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. Pittsburgh, listen to this, could see temperatures plunge to 35 degrees below average on Wednesday. And I need you to really sit with that number for a second, because 35 below average is absolutely brutal by any standard. And it doesn't let up on Thursday either, from Boston all the way down to DC and Charlotte. the entire East Coast corridor is just going to be locked in the deep freeze with no real relief in sight. Atlanta and the rest of the Southeast, you're not off the hook. You might not be hitting sub-zero, but running 15 to 20 degrees below normal in Georgia and the Carolinas. That's a really big deal for you guys. Philly is going to be absolutely brutal Wednesday and Thursday. If you're in Philadelphia right now, it's going to feel like the dead of January all over again, smack in the middle of February. Chicago, you're looking at highs that might not even crack 10 degrees on Wednesday, with wind chills dipping into the negative 20s and 30s. So if you're heading out, layer up. Seriously. Minneapolis, I know you guys are built different when it comes to cold, but even for you, sub-zero highs with wind chills, potentially minus 20 or worse, is nothing to mess around with. And for my folks down in Nashville and Memphis, you're going to feel this too, with overnight lows dipping into the teens and even single digits in spots, which is way below what you normally deal with this time of year. Now, on the complete flip side, and this is what makes this whole setup so crazy if you're out on the Great Plains or along the West Coast. You're about to feel like spring showed up a whole month early. Temperatures out west will be running 20 to 25 degrees above average. And Denver is forecasted to hit near 65 on Friday in February, and that is absolutely wild. Let me put that in perspective for you on the same day. Denver is pushing 65. Pittsburgh could be sitting at 35 below average. And that's a nearly 100-degree spread in how far off from normal different parts of the country are. Los Angeles is going to be flirting with the low 80s by Thursday and Friday. Phoenix is looking at mid-70s. Meanwhile, half the country can't even feel their fingers. And I just think that contrast is absolutely nuts. Portland. Oregon will be in the mid-50s, which doesn't sound crazy. But for Portland in February, that's a solid 10 to 15 above where they'd normally be. So even the Pacific Northwest is running warm. But don't get too cozy with that warm-up out west, because the next Arctic blast is already loading up. It kicks off Friday in the Midwest and Great Lakes, and temps are going to nosedive 20 to 30 degrees below average almost overnight. Saturday is where it really explodes. The Arctic air just detonates east of the Great Plains, and the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast take the worst of it. We're talking some areas hitting 35 below average again on Saturday, and at that point, this is the kind of cold that can be genuinely dangerous frostbite territory. Burst pipes, the whole deal. Florida gets clipped again too. Maybe not quite as intense as this past weekend, but still noticeably cold for a state where people moved specifically to avoid this kind of weather. And I gotta be real with you. This cold pattern is not wrapping up anytime soon. And on top of all of that, there are some big snow chances building for next weekend that we need to keep a very close eye on. All right, let me walk you through what the thermometers actually look like this morning, because some of these numbers are honestly jaw-dropping when you see them on a map. Right now, we've got a widespread freeze across most of Florida. And I'm not just talking North Florida. I mean all the way down past Orlando and Tampa, frost advisories everywhere. The upper Midwest and the Northeast are sub-zero right now for actual air temps. Not wind chill, the actual thermometer reading is below zero. And that is a whole different level of cold. Texas and Oklahoma. You guys are creeping back to normal with lows in the 30s and 40s, which honestly probably feels like a beach day compared to what the rest of the country is going through. And here's a stat that's going to mess with your head this afternoon. If you want to find the warmest weather, don't look at Florida. Look at Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas with highs in the low to mid-60s. All of Florida is only hitting the 50s today. The Sunshine State colder than Oklahoma in February, and that's just not something you see very often at all. And real talk, I'm actually sitting here recording this from Florida right now, and my heat completely broke this past weekend. My studio temp is sitting at about 53 degrees as I'm saying this to you. So I'm literally living through this cold snap in real time while trying to break it down for you, which is not ideal. But hey, at least you know I'm not exaggerating when I say it's cold down here. If you're somewhere warm right now, I'm genuinely jealous. Drop your city and your current temp in the comments. I want to know who's winning the weather lottery today because it sure ain't me. All right, moving along as we roll into Tuesday. The cold hangs tough across the Midwest. The Ohio Valley, and back up into the northeast. So no real changes there. The West Coast and the Gulf Coast keep warming up through Tuesday and Wednesday, though. So if you're in SoCal or anywhere along the Gulf, you're going to be sitting pretty while the rest of us shiver. Wednesday brings a cold front through the southern plains. It'll be kind of weak down in Texas, a bit stronger through the Dixie Alley states, and then significantly stronger as it punches into the northeast. That means a real shot of snowfall Wednesday and Thursday for the northeast New York, Philly, Boston. All of you need to keep your eyes peeled on that one. Then, Thursday into Friday, the southern plains flip the script. Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, all jump into the mid to upper 50s. And parts of Texas could honestly flirt with 70 degrees. So literally, one half of the country is buried in snow and cold, while the other half is cruising with the windows down, same country, same week. Two completely different realities. But while all that warmth is building down south, the next significant Arctic blast is winding up and getting ready to just hammer the Great Lakes in the Midwest Friday into Saturday. Saturday morning temps are going to fall off a cliff sub-zero across Michigan, Minnesota, and much of the Northeast. And this is the kind of drop that catches people off guard. Sunday stays brutally cold along the entire East Coast. And then Monday, Tuesday of next week, that air just sits there. It's not budging. It's got nowhere to go. So this massive warm versus cold divide is going to be the defining weather story all week long. And naturally, when you've got that kind of setup, the snow chances start getting really interesting too. Now, let's get into exactly who's going to see snow over the next 7 to 10 days. Because I know this is the part a lot of you have been waiting for. So let's dive in. Today is actually one of the quietest weather days we've had in a while. Just some scattered rain and snow out in the Pacific Northwest and light flurries across Minnesota, Iowa, and the Dakotas. Enjoy that calm while it lasts. Because tomorrow, it's a different story. Snow becomes way more widespread across the Ohio Valley as a new low-pressure system fires up beneath a beefy high-pressure ridge. That setup could bring light to moderate snowfall from eastern Illinois all the way into Maryland and Delaware, nothing catastrophic, but definitely enough to make the roads sketchy. There's even a chance of some showers and an isolated rumble of thunder in the Mississippi Valley. Tuesday afternoon. Thundersnow in February is always one of those things that just hits different. Late Tuesday into early Wednesday, snow starts falling across West Virginia and pushes down into North Carolina. But we're talking light stuff here, nothing that should cause major headaches. And I want to be real clear about this. The middle of the week is not shaping up to be a winter storm, so don't let anybody overhype that for you. It's just some light accumulation rolling through. The Carolinas could see snow lingering on the backside of that low-pressure system Wednesday and Thursday. And I know a lot of you down there have already dealt with more snow this winter than you're used to. I wouldn't expect anything wild, maybe up to an inch of additional accumulation in parts of North Carolina. Just enough to keep things interesting while all that cold air refuses to leave. But here's where I really need you to pay attention. The big snow story this week is Thursday and Friday. And if you're in the Northeast or the Great Lakes, this is the part where you need to lock in. An Alberta Clipper is going to form up north of the Great Lakes. And for those who don't know, that's a fast-moving storm that drops down from western Canada and usually brings a quick but potent hit of snow and cold. It starts with snowfall in Minnesota and the upper peninsula of Michigan on Thursday. And then Friday, this clipper dives south into Michigan and barrels into the Northeast. This is shaping up to be at least a minor winter storm for the Northeast on Friday, with moderate to heavy snow possible, especially across the Appalachian Mountains and the higher elevations. And right on the heels of that system comes the intense Arctic blast. So it's a 1-2 punch. The snow dumps first, and then the cold locks everything in place like a deep freeze. One thing that's really got my attention about this Friday into Saturday setup is the isobars are packed super tight together on the models. And that means one thing, the winds are going to be howling. Anywhere on the backside of that low, or even along the south and east sides, could see some serious wind gusts. And that's going to lead to significant blowing and drifting snow. And if the snowfall totals are heavy enough, I honestly would not rule out blizzard conditions in some spots. We're talking reduced visibility, drifting across highways, genuinely dangerous travel. What makes this even more concerning is there's already over a foot of snow on the ground across most of New England from storms we've already had this season, so we're stacking on top of what's already there. So this is absolutely a storm system that needs to be taken seriously. Friday through Sunday, even if the new snow totals aren't massive, the wind alone could create some real problems out there. And then Saturday, as the snow lingers around New England, there's a scenario on the models that could take things to an even more serious level, and I want to make sure you know about it. The GFS is showing signals of a potential nor'easter, basically another bomb cyclone trying to spin up offshore Saturday into Sunday. And if that comes together, we could be looking at a major event. Now, I want to be totally upfront. There's still a lot of uncertainty with that scenario. It's several days out, but it's showing up on multiple model runs, and it's something we absolutely have to keep tracking. Quick check-in if you're anywhere in the Northeast right now. How are you guys holding up? Drop your city in the comments. I genuinely want to know what it's looking like outside your window today. And while we're at it, for those of you on the West Coast who are about to enjoy this warm-up, yeah, we see you. Go ahead and flex in the comments. You've earned it this week. All right. Now, as we push into the second week of February, this is where I think the overall pattern shifts into an even higher gear and things get way more active. I'm expecting the return of larger winter storms, and I genuinely believe we're going to see a polar vortex breakdown kick in around the middle of February, and that's a really big deal. That breakdown would open the floodgates for even more winter storm activity, another round of Arctic blasts, and a pattern that just keeps recycling cold air into the lower 48. So, no. If you were hoping this cold pattern was about to wrap up, I'm sorry. But this is not the forecast, where I get to tell you that, not even close. Now, this next part right here is probably the single most important piece of this entire forecast, and it's the main reason I wanted to make sure you stuck around this long. Over the next 7 to 10 days, we're watching the Arctic extremely closely, because a sudden stratospheric warming event looks increasingly likely by the middle of February. Here's what that means in plain English: temperatures miles above the North Pole in the stratosphere spike dramatically, and when that happens, it can completely destabilize the polar vortex. If that disruption works its way down through the atmosphere, and it often does, it weakens and slows the jet stream, which allows massive pools of Arctic air to just slide south and park over the US. That opens the door to extreme cold outbreaks, crazy temperature swings, and a far more active and unpredictable winter pattern across the entire country through the rest of February and potentially into March. And if that scenario fully plays out, we could see Arctic air get funneled down toward the United States in a way that makes everything we've been dealing with so far look tame by comparison. Now, where exactly that cold lands, how intense it gets, how long it sticks around, all of that is still uncertain. And I don't want to pretend like we have all the answers yet. But this is hands down the most important weather story developing right now. And it could completely reshape what the rest of this winter looks like for tens of millions of people. Think about it this way. Everything we've covered today, the Arctic blasts, the snow, the 35 below average temps, the 100-degree spread, all of that might just be the warm-up act for what's still coming. Now, before I wrap up, I want to hear from you if you're in an area I haven't specifically called out today. Places like Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Portland, Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis. Drop your city in the comments. I'm dead serious about this. I want to make sure I'm covering the spots that matter most to you, because a pattern like this hits every region differently, and everybody deserves to know what's heading their way. Also, real quick, what type of weather coverage do you find the most helpful? Do you want more city-by-city breakdowns? More snow maps? More long-range outlooks? Let me know. I'm all ears. All right, if this forecast helped you out, smash that like button. It genuinely helps get this in front of more people who need to see it. And with what's coming, the more people prepared, the better. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next update, because we are going to be tracking this pattern very closely, and things are moving fast. Stay safe out there this week. Bundle up if you're in the cold, hydrate if you're in the warm, and keep checking back because the way this setup is looking. What's coming in mid-February could make everything we just talked about look like the opening act. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other out there.